Chasing development versus chasing wins. When should you more focus on winning and when should you more focus on development? I think that this kind of conversation that's going on, dude, this one's tough, man. This one's hard for me to talk on.
Well, are you developing it in the season for a certain...
At what point do you
so, and the reason...
It's just about practicing and all, or what point do you go out there and say, hey...
Yeah, man,
gotta go
I think that part of the reason it's hard for me to do this is because I believe that winning is a skill. I don't think that...
And it's a culture.
It is a culture. I think that the reason this is so difficult to talk about is because, like, you have both sides of the argument, which is win at all costs. You can learn how to do that from a young age, and you will learn how to win at all costs, but you also may be more susceptible to a shorter career because you may not be able to get yourself to the physical level that others are competing at.
How about this? At what point in time, we've talked about when you take a season off.
Yeah.
You take that for development so that you can compete at a higher level.
Yeah, and I think
so that's my question is, at what point in a season, if we have a travel ball season and then we have a school season, when does that kid get bigger, faster, stronger? When does that kid's arm get healthier? Because we know that when we compete, we're not getting healthier. So people outside of, say, baseball, weightlifting and things like that, if you're going to compete at that highest level and be on that peak, you're always right in between an injury and being fatigued. When do you recover? When do we get better? When do we say, all right, for instance, we know we've had some pretty severe injuries on kids that lost seasons, but they didn't take that time off. We then took the game plan and said, let's fix those little things that you weren't willing to fix when you were healthy. So now we've taken that limb and we corrected everything else, and then they come back right in, and then they just absolutely dominate as if they'd been playing the whole time. Well, if they'd have played the whole time, we wouldn't have had time to develop those small, intricate pieces that made that athlete so dominant.
I want to touch on something here, and this is something I found in my own career. I think that this is kind of where the conversation needs to be going. I think that development is incredibly important, and I think that learning how to win is incredibly important. I think that there has to be a way to make those mutually exclusive or mutually beneficial. Where yes, we're going after development of physicality, development of the skill set, you'll call it, and then you have the development of understanding the game and how to manipulate the game to be better in your favor. And kind of talking about this, I've always had a very good understanding of this game and how to manipulate it so that I put myself in the best situation to help my team win. However, I've always been somebody that's always kind of lacked that physicality. I've talked about it. I wasn't recruited heavily out of high school. Even when I got into pro ball, I don't really think that I was seen as one of those guys that was kind of supposed to stick around. I've always kind of been that guy that physicality-wise has been, under the radar, but my understanding of the game has been well above average. And I think that this is where we kind of talk about skill sets, talk about what makes people outliers. We use that term all the time, which is outlier. So every single big leaguer out there is an outlier. That's a fact. Every big leaguer is an outlier. So if you take that in consideration, there's different areas that you can be an outlier. You can be an outlier in the understanding of the game where nobody knows why, but that dude just wins. Like one of those
gamers.
The gamer, yeah. Then you have the absolute stud, the physicality, everything's there. They're the elite of the physicality standpoint. They hit bombs, they throw gas, whatever you want to call it. I think that what has to happen in youth baseball is a healthy combination of the two of them. So I don't think that it's blind development. I don't think that it's, hey, just focus on skills. And the reason why is because you won't learn the game, and you have to learn the game from a young age. And that's by playing. That's where I think that rec ball comes into handy, because at the end of the day, you're playing 1, maybe 2 times per week. You're showing a lot of focus and energy, and you're paying attention too. Do you remember playing back when you played rec ball? You would be excited during the week to get ready to play a game, right? And then did you ever play travel ball?
No, we actually didn't even have it back then.
So I'll explain it from me. When I started playing travel ball, it started to become a job. And
Right.
I know that sounds kind of stupid, but like in reality, if you're doing it all the time from a young age, it gets monotonous.
Well, that's where I would say is, you say that it kind of becomes a job because it wasn't every 5 days you're trying to win something. So that was my point. Okay, I don't have a problem. Like, I'm a competitive. It wouldn't matter what we're going to do right now. I'm going to try to win.
Yeah.
So we understand that every 5 days. But how do we pull a 12 and under kid off that peak to understand that that's not, at the end of the day, when we're under 14, we're learning the game, we're learning our bodies, we're creating good swings, we're creating good arm paths, we're becoming healthy and smarter, so that when it is time to win, now we've put all these pieces in together, we've developed it some as we're competing, but okay, now it's time to say, all right, we got to put our foot on their throat, we got to go win a championship. My question is, and for me, what I'm seeing is that the kids are getting burned out because it's all about winning. I mean, they're playing 6U travel right now, all-stars.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's tough.
these kids aren't developing out there. When I hear a father throwing a bat over a dugout and they're getting in fights and thrown out at 6U, you can't tell me that a kid's developing.
I'd argue that's even worse than just not developing.
No, I agree. That's my
just
point,
hating the game.
100%.
Yeah, I think that there is a happy medium.
So the young kids, we've talked about young kids just need to play. Like, let's come in and play, let's move well, let's understand, and that's, to me, development.
Yeah.
And the kids like playing like that. They come in and play small games in here, and the kids are jacked up.
Yeah.
Like, none of them
Yeah.
dread coming in. When they come through that door, they're throwing gear
excited.
down, ready to go.
They're excited.
Because we're making it fun, and they're competing. They know they're going to compete every day here. So how is my question, and I would say that I think we are doing a great job of teaching them to compete every day, but it's not about winning at that point in time. They are winning, they are competing, they are getting better, they are developing, and they're learning to love the game through competing.
So I'm glad you said that, because this is where I was going with this too. You can learn winning outside of baseball.
100%.
So I think that this is where some people think, and let me say this, you have to play the game to understand the game. I'm a believer in that. Like, I think you can watch the game and understand it, but there's things that you learn playing the game that you won't get just watching baseball. However, you also can learn how to win outside of baseball. And the reason I say that is because that's always been my mentality. I'm the younger brother, so I've always had to, play catch up. I've always just wanted to be able to compete and be able to compete at that level type of thing.
You have to have small victories to build confidence and that you can compete. But at the end of the day, it's not life and death.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Are we mentoring kids through sports? And I think that when it's only about winning and losing, they're not understanding that we are mentoring through sports. Because how many guys do you know that you went to school with that are still making money at it? We're not talking about college, we're talking about high school, little league. There's a handful of guys of you guys that are actually making money and somebody wants to see your jersey. Okay, there's only a handful. But all of those kids, or a majority of them, are fathers or husbands, and on the softball side, their mothers and their wives. So aren't we supposed to mentor adults through sports? And are we really mentoring them when we see a coach throw a bat over the fence? Well, that kid doesn't understand that that's wrong because his mentor is acting that way. So let's say outside of the game of baseball, what happens when they get a job and they throw a fit?
Yeah.
They now don't have a job. Now they've lost their house, their car, their marriage. I mean, so for me, sports is outside of winning and losing the game.
Yes.
And I think, to me, that's where chasing the rings, we're not developing good young adults.
I think,
or we could do a better job of it.
Yeah,
How's that?
I think that it's, to clarify on that even more, I think that using the phrase chasing the rings, because like when I hear chasing ring, I think of like actual ring. I think of like, championship high school, championship college, championship, whatever you want to call it. That is a worthy goal. Chasing that ring is a worthy goal, and I think that we need to.
Everybody wanted a state championship or a national championship.
I think that where you run into it is chasing the ring from, we'll call it, anything under the age of high school.
Right. I mean, because it doesn't. No college. Did any of your colleges or anybody that you talk to ever ask you about what you want at 12?
No. Yeah.
No, but how many kids have all these rings, and you see them every day? They have just racks of rings.
I think that also kind of goes into the participation side of it too.
Oh, 100%.
Ooh, I'll tell you what, and that also, to go in on that even more, is that, like, what does that ring mean?
That's my point. So now, why is this ring that we won at 12 more significant than the ring that we won in state championship?
Yeah.
There has to be a difference.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this, and maybe I'm wrong, but, you know, a walk-off is not when you get the base hit for a 10-run rule. I've never heard of such a thing, and I thought maybe I was just, and I hate to say that, but that's not a walk-off.
Yeah.
A walk-off for me is the game winner in a high situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there was no, I hate to say there's no pressure. There's no pressure at a 10-run game.
Yeah.
So did you really perform at a high level? I mean, it's a 10-run game. How high level is that competition that day? You see what I mean? So are we rewarding, hey, I got a walk-off? I mean, come on, man. Let's make what the peak is the peak. And then let's be proud of just competing and do what we do. But then again, I mean, the hierarchy of life, that's why there's a pyramid.
Yeah.
There's only so many can fit at the top of a pyramid. Otherwise, for me, you know, as a pro athlete, in which I'm not, you know, the pro athlete sits at a different pinnacle than what your state championship does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people don't buy $100 tickets to go to a high school game. So there is a hierarchy. And so that ring that's being chased every week, it's not, and it dumbs down and it takes away from the big ones.
You're a kid, they'll pay for it. What does that teach the kid?
Right. No,
You don't have to work for it. You're just going to get a win.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I don't like the chasing the ring every 5 days at a travel ball tournament.
Yeah.
I don't say that travel ball's bad. I don't say that any ball is. I think ball is great. But I do think there's a point.
Yeah, and I'll even clarify it. I think that playing travel ball and wanting to win is also good.
I do too. I want to win every time I do anything.
I think that the structure of travel ball needs to change, though. I think that's what we're talking about. Is that, like, I think that the structure of rec baseball was great for the game of baseball, and the reason why is because you had a regular season, you had a postseason. You had to work yourself all the way up.
Right.
You play travel ball, it's postseason. You're playing in the postseason the entire time, and there's no regular season. Dude, the regular season is the most difficult part of any sport you play. And the reason why is because, yes, every game matters, but it really doesn't.
Well,
so, like, you lose this game, it's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. So, like, you have to teach yourself the mentality of every game matters, and it matters because I think it matters, because I don't want to lose, period.
Well, we did when I had the Woodbat League years ago, we had about 6 years. We had so much fun there. We kept score, but nobody kept records. And you say, well, that's not, it was considered a development league.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do, was bring kids in, because when I moved here, I had, by the time the school season's over, rec ball's over.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing travel ball, then you're committing your entire summer. So I made a 5-week league, and we played a couple times a week, but it was all wood bat, so it was fun. The kids competed, we kept score, we had umpires, but the end goal was there was no championship at the end, because one, the season was smaller and we had limited times. But the kids had so much fun because, yes, they competed every single day, but it wasn't the end of the world.
Yeah.
Our goal was, do we know how to bunt? Do we know how to have double cuts? Did we know where the ball goes in the right place? So we had a list of things that we wanted each team to make sure that those kids knew.
Yeah.
And so because the kids their goal was to learn and develop, the pressure wasn't there to win.
Yeah.
Though when they got in the game, they were trying to win.
Well, I bet you also have the dudes out there that were just the natural gamers, the ones that just wanted to win because they were just playing the sport. Or they
started playing and they were competing that day.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that there wasn't pressure there, but why do we have to put pressure on a Tuesday for a game that's not till Friday? I mean, I had kids in the cage just say, hey, I'm going to this tournament. I hear there's a bunch of college coaches this weekend. Man, if there's no college coaches, or there's a pro coach, or there's nobody, don't you still want to beat that guy that's on the mound?
Yeah.
So why not? Why does the
matter?
pressure?
Yeah, you got to love the game first.
Right. I mean, if nobody's there, I still want to beat you. If me and you are in here and we hit off the tee for exit velos, there's nobody watching us. You're a pitcher. I'm not even playing, but we still seriously compete and talk a bunch of trash. We have a lot of fun, but we are competing.
Yeah, that's also.
And we talk a lot of trash afterwards.
And that honestly, you know, what you just touched on there, and this is what I have seen at the professional level. Like, I think that at the professional level, there's a lot of people that have variations of how they got there, but the one thing that remains constant at the professional level is everybody there is like insanely competitive. Like, it doesn't matter if you're playing ping pong.
Doesn't matter anything.
It's insanely competitive. And I think that's the outlier. That's the outlier that remains constant in all professional athletes, is that like it's the innate desire to just not want to lose. Like, you know, I think Derek Jeter talks about it. Like, he was always talking about how like I hate losing more than I want to win or something.
That's where we're going in the same direction. I wonder if I am not saying it, is when I say, so for a person that just naturally has to compete, they have to win, what do? They're willing to do extra.
Yeah.
And it's not a force. It's not a job to them, because they just want to be competitive. So they're putting in the extra work. They're getting better.
Yeah.
Now, when we go to a tournament every 5 days, if you're playing 7 games in 2 or 3 days, you've traveled, the family's gone, and you get back on a late Sunday night. We know how many times the games aren't until 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, between Monday being exhausted and you're leaving on Thursday for another all weekend, when do you develop?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
That's my biggest. So why not say, hey, we're going to have a travel ball season, but then we're going to meet up at one area for a tournament that's for everything. There's the ring.
Yeah. The tournament. But see, and then when you talk about
postseason.
When you talk about that, though, who gets the tournament?
Well, and then that's where money comes involved, and so I think I think the teams that do it well with the travel ball organizations, probably they either just go find kids that are already good, or do you get a travel ball organization that says, look, from this age to this age is our development age, and we want to set in a really strong developmental program. But at this age, we kind of, I hate to say, weed out the less players or the less elite.
Well, I mean, if you did it that way, then what you can always do, because look, let's be honest too, there's also late bloomers. Like, what if you had a structure where it was like almost like graduation? Like, you hit a certain physical capability, you're able to graduate into the now competition phase of it, or maybe there's something. And I'm just speculating. This goes
back to the competition side, though. So I was 74 pounds in high school.
Yeah.
I was so competitive and so just. Some people say mean, but to me it was competition. I refused it. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
And I just stuck with it until, I graduated at 150. So in 4 years I put on 80 pounds. Late bloomer, highly competitive for the time I was young, just because I wanted to compete. My question to you is, how much of that can you develop, or is it DNA? You get a person that has older brothers, is always being grinded, and just learns to compete. I didn't have any older brothers.
I think it's possible to develop it, but not in the current structure of how we understand development. I think that,
again, that's when we get back to, hey, are we chasing or are we developing?
And this one will go more into the mental side of it. I think that like baseball itself has started to go into the mental side of the game really well, but I don't think we've understood how to develop the mental side. I think we've understood how to understand it, but we haven't understood about how to alter it. You follow that?
Yeah.
And especially at a young age, and this is where, like, obviously one of our goals, we talk about it all the time, is being able to teach kids that failure itself is not bad. It's actually
it's a must.
And I won't say it's not good. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying to go out there and fail and be happy that you failed, but
but you have to fail to actually
win. To be okay with it and to be adapt. adapt.
Understand
That's
it's
what
part of the process.
Failure allows you to adapt and grow. If you don't fail, you don't know what you have to change. Like, that's where this game gets so complicated, because at the end of the day, it's not just you. You're not going out there and just doing it. There's an opponent. The opponent can react to what you're doing, and you can react to what the opponent's doing. This is where the failure of it, like, if you want to grow in baseball, you have to fail first, because if you don't know what you're doing wrong, how can you grow?
I agree.
You can't.
And it's how do you accept failure?
Yeah.
Do you give up? Do you throw bats? Do you throw? No. You know, when we were in the cage, yesterday, we had a guy who was kind of struggling a little bit. We had to pull him out and say, look, those last 2 at bats from earlier, they don't count.
Yeah.
And then get some composure. I'm very big about composure in the batter's box, composure on the field, because again, at the end of the day, until you sign that big, composure, if you don't have some composure, you're not going to play. A coach isn't going to put up with it.
Yeah.
And number 2, if you come to me, or you want to be an instructor at Intent, and you have no composure and you're losing your mind, well, then you can't mentor and then grow and develop. It just is a cycle that we learn through sports. We got to be competitive, but we have to have composure. Where is that happy medium?
Understanding that you can't be perfect.
Yeah, when you're in baseball, 300 over 10 years is.
Yeah, I know, and everybody always uses that, but like, I think that's even that's like an outdated thing. Like, it's a really good example to say, like, yeah, you fail 7 out of 10 times, but like, you really don't. You don't fail 7 out of 10 times. You fail 5 out of 10, because you're going to square up one of those. And you'll consider that a win. But like, I think what they don't talk about is the like literal everyday, the everyday showing up, not wanting to show up, but having to be there and having to push through it and having to actually want to be able to do those things.
And that's development. That's development.
Yes,
that's mentoring and developing through sports.
And I think that, and this is what I'm still currently trying to figure out, but how do you teach kids from a young age that you're not going to want to show up every day? Because you're not. I'm telling you that right now. You will not find any person in the world that every single day they wake up and they're like, I'm ready to go.
No.
Like, everybody has multiple days a week. I myself go through maybe an average of 3 of them per week where I'm like, I don't want to show up today.
Well, is that learning, development, and the process. The process is when we don't want to go in, maybe we're not at our peak, that we're still in there. We still got to get some work done. We still have to get the work done. Because then when the days that are coming in and you feel fresh and you're ready, then those are even more fun. But you have to earn it. You have to earn the right to be successful.
Yeah.
You don't earn the right by only coming in when you feel good, because that doesn't work. And so again, you have to earn success. Again, that's back to me. I guess as we talk out loud, I'm understanding more what I think is process and development.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I say development, again, as we're saying it out loud, I'm starting to say, okay, maybe I think development is come in when you don't want to. It's not just where is the cutoff and where is the bunt.
And I'll even clarify on that even more. It's not just come in. Like,
come in and work. Come in and get in focused.
Here's the thing, though. I think that this is something else to clarify in terms of training. Like, those days you don't want to show up. First off, first step is showing up. Awesome, good. Second step is just do the routine. Like whatever it is, you do not have to go above and beyond. Like, the days that you're just kicking dust type of thing, just do the routine. Do the routine. Be monotonous. Do it.